Welcome back, everyone. Hope you all had a good week, refreshed yourself, and came back for more. Just to recap, we are discussing autism and relating it to My Little Pony Friendship as Magic characters in various chapters. If you missed the premiere I kicked off on World Autism Awareness Day and all of their chapters in the series so far, you can find those in this video's description. Also, we are going to be switching things up a bit. I realized before that most of my points were right, but they were introduced in a sloppy manner. So that's why I'm switching this intro up for the remainder of the series, having my mom help me certain steps of the way. So if it feels almost like the series comes off as different, that's why. Here goes. Today our focus lies on Fluttershy, who is one of the more major characters within the series and is a physical embodiment of kindness. What are her autistic characteristics? First, we will cover something simple. Fluttershy's love for animals. One of the main attributes, according to Habry, found in autistic individuals is having a hard time making social connections, thus leading to constant loneliness. Research has paved the way for the possibility that being associated with a pet can lower loneliness and give a necessary bond between animal and person. In any given situation, pets such as dogs, guinea pigs, and horses can be responsible for getting kids with ASD out of their comfort zone and help them to accept social situations. A study reveals that when a dog whose purpose is for therapy reasons makes themselves known in a period of therapy, an ASD individual will suddenly verbalize at great lengths. A Habry-funded study using therapy dogs as a means of social interaction with ASD individuals showed that kids typically have less isolation and depression characteristics, as well as bring forth more social benefits. Using horses for therapy, okay, not quite like that though, can greatly display less hyperactivity and negative emotions within an individual. Guinea pigs are great candidates based on their size, but what these three animal categories appear to have in common is the fact that they always benefit an ASD kids socially. Two more Habry-funded studies have shown that two companion animals assist the families regarding an ASD youth. Service dogs present with ASD individuals have appeared to lower their stress levels, and upon their absence, show a spike with these stress levels. A separate study demonstrates how having a service dog joining a family changed various attributes shown by an ASD kid, including, according to the family, better safety and motor function, calmer behavior, and obedience as a result. Yet another Habry-based study, but a somewhat different one at that, from the University of Missouri is currently under the hypothesis that ASD youth display more social activity once a shelter cat comes into their life, and is found best for these families based on their more mellow traits. A cat stress-based investigation is also being conducted, with the expectancy of cats getting used to their new homes and losing much of their stressful traits. According to Autism Awareness Center, ASD individuals tend to interact with animals more due to the lack of verbalizing and non-judgmental characteristics in the animal, as well as responsibility coming with the ownership of the pet. A study conducted by Gretchen Carlisle, a researcher for the Research Center of Human-Animal Interaction in the MU College of Veterinary Medicine, described 70 parents of an ASD individual and their pets, going on further to explain that most of the parents had kids in possession of a dog, and of those statistics, 94% reported that ASD kids have formed a bond with their furry companions, and even the percentage of families non-possession of a pet said that their ASD kin like dogs. And as Carlisle quotes, dogs can help children with autism by acting as a social lubricant. For example, children with autism may find it difficult to interact with other neighborhood children. If the children with autism invite their peers to play with their dogs, then the dogs can serve as bridges that help the children with autism communicate with their peers. Parents in possession of service dogs have stated the same, that more socializing with other kids in the ASD individual's age range are increased with a pet in their midst. This is taking the information I learned about service dogs from Habry to greater heights and more evidence. A quick note is that any autistic animal lover out there that may be in love with dogs or in other animals should not be so eager to interact with any service dog they may see on the streets. The official definition of a service dog, according to the ADA, is as follows. Service animals are defined as dogs that are individually trained to do work or perform tasks for people with disabilities. The reason you shouldn't assume you have permission to interact with them based on the information derived from daily paws, they have an obligation, a duty, to do tasks for their handlers, the owners of these animals, and interactions from others can serve as a distraction from these duties. This could be dangerous for the service dog's owner if you're distracting the dog and they have an emergency that requires the animal's full attention. If you have a dog with you, you should avoid service dogs if possible. According to Haley Bergelin, a certified professional dog trainer, Daily Paws pet health and behavior editor, and the executive director of the Iowa Human Animal Bond Society, and she goes on further to say, people and environments can also serve as a distraction. In spite of this, there are times when interacting with a service dog is acceptable, but some guidelines should be met first. One example from Bergelin states that associating with service dogs, the handler will ask you to come up to the dog, rather than the dog come to you. A more important time to interact with a service dog is if the animal appears to be stray, denoting that its owner or handler may be in trouble. And some other guidelines before interacting is to give the animal space, not act wild around it, and ignore it even if you are being sniffed. Lastly, a substantial amount of service animals have a vest or harness to verify their duties, though this isn't always the case. The ADA doesn't require that they have either as means of identifying these dogs as service dogs, and in addition, the handler doesn't need documents verifying their companions to be service animals. So based on everything we just covered, how does the character known as Fluttershy come in? For everyone not familiar with the show's environment, let me once again say, Fluttershy is nature-oriented, especially when it comes to animals, and finds these creatures to be soothing. Strictly speaking, I am not someone who actually finds this bond with animals. I am one who enjoys animals and think they are fine, but not in comparison to my human peers. Ever since a young age, and initially in the earlier parts of the show, she preferred these smaller creatures to her fellow pony kind. It's true that her affiliation with her 5 other friends, just to clarify, Twilight Sparkle, Applejack, Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash, and Rarity, has caused her to grow beyond her irregular comfort zone. In the episode Tanks for the Memories, Rainbow Dash was sad that her beloved turtle Tank was going into hibernation. Eventually, she comes to terms that this is best for Tank, but not before taking the stubborn route about it. The constant stubbornness that made her go, let's just forget about biology and accurate climatic and seasonal change and hibernation and all that. I want to spend time with my turtle, and tried shutting down the winter lab. Yes, there is such a thing. And her mayhem nearly resulted in her friends and other ponies getting snowballed. Heh. Sometime after, Fluttershy comes into her home and assertively and quite harshly tells her friend she must let the turtle hibernate, and gets a rainbow equine into a crying fit. Initially, she seemed almost wicked for taking that approach, but explains that Rainbow will never move past her stubbornness, I guess. The writers didn't really clarify, until she lets all her sorrows out. Fluttershy and Applejack, but mainly Fluttershy, then proceed to try to make her friend feel better, but in relation to Rainbow's depression, Fluttershy joins in on the waterworks, unable to witness Rainbow being so sad. It didn't take long before Pinkie Pie, Rarity, and Applejack join in as well, though according to Pinkie Pie, Applejack is crying inside. These 4, Fluttershy, Rarity, Applejack, and Pinkie Pie, just in case you already forgot, in this scenario seem to have characteristics of what is known as emotional empathy, according to Very Well Mind, which in simple terms is when one may feel a certain emotion in comparison to others' emotions. Before I go on any further, Pinkie Pie tells Twilight, I'm only sad because you're not sad. And to me, that statement comes off as sounding pretty ridiculous. But maybe Pinkie doesn't have empathy after all. For Rarity, Applejack, and Fluttershy though, I'm going to keep going with this theory. A primary example of emotional empathy may be if someone comes off as being bored, so another mirrors these attributes. Cognitive is not empathy highly found in autistic individuals compared to emotional, or is one that ASD individuals struggle with, according to Very Well Health and Psychology Today. At least half of these autistic people, according to studies specifically 50 through 85%, experience alexithymia, which is when an individual struggles with being able to tell their own emotions, and furthermore, autistic kids and grown-ups tend to experience alexithymia in comparison to the general population. Also, cognitive empathy tends to link up with narcissism quite a bit, which is one clue pointing to the lack of that specific empathy found in autism. And to back this, an apparent court case from Psychology Today involving an autistic defendant and his accidental involvement with someone ending up badly hurt, and his apparent body language didn't link to his statements, giving a genuine sense in the man's words. In other words, meaning an autistic individual may be willing to be morally driven rather than think of his or her own self-interests. Now, as far as emotional empathy being found more than cognitive empathy in those with autism, the article checks out. However, it used to be perceived that emotional empathy didn't come with the whole autism package, based on the fact that rather than say something like, "I'm sorry," when one was feeling sorrow, they would instead try finding a solution as if it were a problem, or giving some sort of relatable consolation. The conclusion on the matter I have gathered is that autistic people tend to not deal with cognitive empathy as much as their neurotypical counterparts they walk on the same street with, but they do possess emotional just as much or superior to them. A quick recap of what we were discussing before this whole analysis about empathies and alexithymia that probably put your brain on overload was the fact that Rainbow Dash didn't want her pet turtle Tank to hibernate for the winter, and despite the fact that she was willing to let the turtle do it, this didn't stop her from being sad. 3 out of her 5 other friends came off as expressing emotional empathy. Well, we covered a lot of ground this chapter, and this week. My goal for this series is to have autistic people and Neros come together and take something away from this. Tell me your thoughts below. And again, thanks for listening, and I hope you return for more next time. Bye.